Welcome to my podcast, simply entitled Women Influencers. I am Veronica, CCIM, founder and CEO of Capstack Commercial, a commercial real estate company serving the greater Orlando area. This week, we have the second installment of the compiled questions that my guests have asked me in the past. Here are clips from the episodes of Jeri Frank, Agnes Rivera, and Tracy Kasper. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast.
You are native Philippines, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And you were leaving a relationship and you moved to the United States. And divorces are difficult. There's a lot that goes with that. I'm curious about your experience of leaving the Philippines and then coming to the United States, and what was that like for you, and why make that choice?
Well, as you know, you're also a divorcee like me, right? As you know, divorces actually really make you make some life-changing decisions, right? Well, that in itself is a life-changing decision, but my sisters actually all lived in the United States at that time already. Were starting to build their lives as first generation immigrants in the United States. My father in World War II actually served in the Philippine Army that supported the United States in World War II. And so he and my mother had always thought that the future would probably be better for us in the United States anyway. Mm-hmm. Well, I married my then husband, who, by the way, is Singaporean, which means that I actually moved from the Philippines to Singapore. And 5 years later, we decided to get married. And shortly after that, we were getting a divorce. So the main reason why I moved to the United States really was because of family. Because it was always the dream of my parents for us to build a life here in the United States because it's the land of opportunity. Okay. But I didn't really feel like I needed to at that time because I had a life in Singapore and I had a husband. And what happened was, as you know, something so devastating as that just makes you really start to rethink what would be best for you. And for a lot of immigrants, I think, that is primarily a reason to move to the United States is because it is the land of opportunity. Yeah. And so I moved to the United States. Actually, in the beginning, my husband and he was taking some classes in LA, and I thought I was going to stay with him in LA. And I thought I'll go visit my sisters, who, by the way, when you're from Asia, you always start in California. Because it's so much closer, right? But Florida is so far away in the east, like we would never think that. But if not for the fact that my sisters actually held me close and took me in and was just there for me, while my parents still lived in the Philippines. Eventually, my mother, after my father had passed, when she got her citizenship, she had also moved to the United States to be with us. And really, that was very painful for her to have left the house that they built together, and we were raised in that house. But yes, it is interesting how different it is when you were born and raised in a different culture and move to a foreign country and make a life for yourself. So many challenges. First of all, as I'd mentioned, English is my second language. Filipino is my first language. And I know you were curious about whether or not I spoke English growing up. As a matter of fact, the United States, after World War II, actually built the education system in the Philippines. And so most Filipinos, as you know, and I don't know whether you know this, but most Filipinos are very fluent in English. And that's why the call centers are very, very good businesses over there, is because the Filipinos are very good in speaking English, and because we were educated in the English language.
Yeah.
But still, to this day, I have challenges in speaking and verbalizing my thoughts sometimes because it's not my first language. So that's one of the things that I think is different,
Mhm.
right? But yes, the primary reason why I moved to the United States is just to be with family after such a devastating experience. And it's been great. I moved here in 1989. That kind of shows my age. But anyway, I've told people that I've turned 60 this year. And the United States is still the best country in the world, very best.
Yeah,
And we have our challenges, but
right.
let me tell you, I'm glad to be an American citizen.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there you go. I hope that kind of answered a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you balance your professional life and your volunteer life? Do you feel like one takes away from the other? And do you see yourself continuing this path?
That's a very good question. And certainly a question that everyone in the volunteer world should be asking themselves all the time. And I'll tell you, I live a life, and of course, Stephen Covey was my best sort of author that I've read all of his books, right? And I
Great
used to have,
motivator.
yeah, and I used to have the BlackBerry, what do you call
Yes.
it? The planner that he used to have. Can't even remember the name
I
of
had
it. 'Cause
his
it's so
I had
long
his
ago.
motivational tapes.
Yes. And I will tell you that everything that I do is based on the big rocks, little rocks principle of Stephen Covey. And if some of you who are listening have never heard of that, just Google Stephen Covey and maybe put in big rocks and little rocks, and you'll see a short video of him illustrating that. And it's so amazing to me how he sort of made this metaphor or this picture about you putting your big rocks in the jar first, and the jar being your calendar, right? The time. You cannot make more time. Time is static. It's what it is. It's all you have, right? So the big rocks would actually represent what is most important to you. And to me, that would be family. And at this stage of my career or a stage of my life, I'm mature. I'm probably a lot older than you, but and I've said this on the podcast, I'm 60. So at this stage of my life, I really want to go on a lot of vacations because my husband is also older. And so while we're young and healthy, we'd like to do more vacationing. So those are the things that go in my calendar first, the big rocks. And then the small rocks, right, would be work because we have to do work and we have to be able to take care of our customers, take care of our team, take care of everything else, right? And then the little rocks would be my volunteer work. And it almost seems like I do a lot of it. But frankly, the reason why I really, really love to volunteer with large organizations like the National Association of Realtors and CCIM Institute is because the meetings are really very high level. We have good staff that support us. And so it doesn't really take up so much of our calendar slots. And then of course there's the sand, which is just the little things that are their stuff, their busy stuff that you need to do. And you're able to do that because you prioritize your big rocks, your little rocks, and then the sand that goes into your calendar. So the volunteer life for me actually opened a lot of doors for me. However, I realized later on when I started in this industry, I volunteered a lot. Became president of my local realtor association and then moved up in the state and then the National Association of Realtors. Not because I wanted to, but because I was tapped on the shoulder like you were.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you want to really step back and say, okay, well, now that my career has gone to another level, and I also want to continue learning, right? So I spend a lot of time with, for instance, learning from women like you, listening to podcasts, signing up for more classes with CCIM, and also being able to deliver more to my team and my customers. I really just was very, very mindful and intentional with how I spend my time.
So the question that I wanted to ask you is, what is that one big win? What's that one big success that you have had in your leadership?
So that's a great question. And leadership. So you and I are very active in the National Association of Realtors. Your role is much, much higher than mine. But in about a few years ago, I can't remember when, I was honored to have been picked as the chair of the Housing Opportunity Committee. Now, this committee is huge. It's about over 100 members from all over the country. And so I felt very, very honored to have led this fantastic group. And I will tell you that the proudest moment of my leadership was when we were able to bring the committee, not just myself, but as chair, we were able to bring the financial literacy policy that was brought to the National Association of Realtors board, which is comprised of nearly 1,000 directors who vote. And what happened was the committee was able to at least put together this policy together with our fantastic staff, which by the way is Wendy Penn, who is no longer with us, but with another, I think it's a mortgage banking association, if I'm not mistaken. But she had been with NAR for a very long time, and we put this policy together. And consequently, NAR put some tools for the local associations. Again, real estate is local, and so it was so important for a local association to have these tools to be able to go out in the community and at least provide some programs that would help with financial literacy. Let me tell you, my daughter, who is going to be going to University of South Florida, which we're very, very happy she has her AA. We actually had to sit down and think about student loans. And we had this long conversation about debt and income and how that impacts you in the future. And I think that to this day, I have a passion for financial literacy because, and I'll tell you an immigrant story. So I migrated to the United States when I was already 27, going through a bad divorce. And like you, when you talked about not having community, because I moved from one state to another, I really did not have a community and network. And so it was much more difficult for me to get connected with the people that mattered to build my career. So the Realtor Association actually provided me with that. And then I started thinking about, because we were realtors, we deal with families, and most of them don't understand financial wellness. And a lot of them can't get a mortgage because they're about 10 years late and they have 3 more years before they can be house ready. So I think that was the proudest moment of my leadership, when I was able to bring at least or lead this huge committee from all over the country to eventually get NAR to provide these tools that are available to all of our local realtor associations. So there you go. That's the one thing that I'm proud
I
of.
love it.